The gospel reading comes from Matthew 27 and begins with verse 38. Then two robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also chief priests and the scribes and the elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "This man is calling Elijah." And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth shook and the rocks were split. And the tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out from the tombs after the resurrection, they went into the city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." There were also many women there, looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. Next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how the impostor said, while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell people he has risen from the dead. And the last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Well, I want to start with a question. What does the cross really mean? I mean, what is the cross all about? You Christians, you wear crosses around your neck, some of you. We have a big cross we just put up a couple of weeks ago, finally in our sanctuary, and got rid of all the curtains behind it. They didn't tear in two, but we got rid of them, and we put the cross up, and we've got crosses out in the hallway. You got a cross back on the table. There's crosses everywhere. You Christians have them everywhere. What is with the cross? What does it really mean? Why do we care so much about the cross? Oh, I know what you're going to say. Jesus died on the cross for your sin. Is that what you're going to say? Yes, that is true. But what if we don't care about sin? What if we just get rid of sin altogether? We don't need it, right? What if we just totally wipe the slate clean? No sin anymore, right? Sin is just for religious people, right? You're like, Pastor, we are religious people. What's going on here? No, think about it. It's just Jews and Christians who care about sin, right? Why do you care about sin? As long as it's not illegal by the state, the law, and as long as your cloud of witnesses, your friendship group, your culture, whoever you hang out with, as long as they approve of your behavior, then it's okay, right? Not illegal law, and not, violating your friendship group, prophets, as long as it fits in that kind of area, you should be fine. Anything goes, right? I mean, why do you care about sin? Nobody wants to talk about it. If a pastor gets up in a church and talks about sin, it MCs the congregation. Nobody comes back, right? Can't talk about sin in today's world. Nobody wants to hear it. And you only hear about sin in church settings. I got an idea. Let's stop going to church. And then we don't have to hear all this nonsense. What do you think? What do you think about that? No, there you go. That's great. Sin will disappear completely if we're not in the church. Do you have people in your life who represent this kind of talk? No. Do you have friends and family that kind of would, say this if they were in a place that they were comfortable? Do you? Who says these things? It's no wonder people stay away from church. Who wants the extra rules? Right? I know what you Christians are thinking. Oh, I know what you're thinking. A person may not believe in sin, but there are still consequences for committing sin, whether you admit it or not. Isn't that what you're thinking? And that is true. There are many bad decisions that are not illegal and that are totally accepted in popular culture or among your friendship group, maybe, depending on who they are, that will destroy people's lives, that will destroy families, that will destroy friendships, that will destroy marriages. Think about that. Sin is very real whether we choose to confess it or not. Even if you're an atheist, you still feel and experience the consequence of sin in the way I just described. But how does Christ's death on the cross have anything to do with our sin? People often say, if God is so good, this is kind of the mentality of the people in your passage, but if God is so good, why would he allow Jesus to suffer and die on the cross? If he's so good, why would he allow that? This is called the abusive father theory of atonement. In fact, if God is so good, why does he allow anyone to suffer at all? Why does God allow people to make bad choices? That's not a good God, is it? And I know what you're going to say because I taught you before, right? God gives us free will. And not only free will, but freedom to reject our Creator. And we often do. All of us. At various times and under various circumstances, we reject God. Oh, I know what's coming, Pastor. I know what's coming. You're going to say that without freedom of choice, we would be pre-programmed like robots. We would have no identity. Oh, Pastor, I've heard this sermon before. You've said it so many times. I get it. God gives us freedom to reject him. Oh, actually, it's much deeper than that. Look at the scene in your passage. Do I have it? Yes. I think it's around verse 42. Look at the scene in your passage this morning. Look at what's happening at the foot of the cross. Jesus is hanging there in shame and humiliation. And God's chosen people, the leaders of the church, are mocking him. Not just them. Even the secular folk, even the people outside of the church, even just the bystanders that are just watching this scene, they derided him, shaking their heads and saying, hey, you did these great things before, but you cannot save yourself. They even acknowledge that Jesus has some unusual power because they've witnessed it. Say, why can't you do it now? What happened to you, Jesus? Here is the King of the Jews. Let him come down from the cross. And what else do they say? And we will believe. Right? If you come down from the cross, then we'll believe. Oh, this is fascinating. Wait a minute. That is a great idea. Don't you think that's a great idea? Why didn't he do that? Oh, it would have been awesome. Can you imagine what that would have been like? That scene of Jesus coming down from the cross, pierced hand, turns into like Iron Man guns, and you just go, psh, 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 and he starts shooting up the whole place. Oh, that would be awesome. Iron Man theme music. Dun, 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 dun. There, you want to play it right now. He's going to play it next song. Anyway, flying up in the air, fire coming down, judging the people. Wouldn't that be great? Peter would be like, I told you to do that weeks ago. Fire from heaven. I told him to do it weeks ago. Right? Oh, man. People would be like totally believing at that point, wouldn't they? Isn't that a good thing? No? It would be. It would be great. They would believe. They'd be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're not sorry. Right? Okay, we're not sorry, but we believe. Right? Like a Monty Python scene. It'd be crazy. They would believe. Don't you want that? For God to be unmistakable. Oh, man. There would be no denying it. God would have a huge revenge win, right? People would be fried. But at least they would be forced to believe. But what would happen? If that was really the case, what would happen? What happens to the Christian church in that instance? It would disappear. There would be no Christian church. The face of God's grace would no longer exist. Right? When we look to the cross, we see the face of God's gift of grace. Because it is God who is hanging there in humiliation. We see the face of God's gift of grace pleading our case. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. The great prayer of the Lord's intercession on our behalf. That's what we see. That's what the symbol of the cross means. Jesus experiences what we deserve. He took that upon himself as a substitute for our transgressions. And as Christians, we see that. Christ on the cross is the living embodiment of God's grace. His wounds heal all wounds. His unbroken commitment and relationship with us heals and restores all broken relationships. This is why we wear the cross. To remind us of God's great love. This is also why Christians say there is no other way that saves. There is no other scenario that would be possible to save. There's no other way to know God's grace. Because while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And we see the relationship that we have with God on the cross. And it can never be taken away from us. That is the beauty of your faith. Amen?